Good morning. I'm here to do Math Reimagine Day 14. This one might take a little bit longer, and I am going to show two different methods for most of the problems, so hang tight. Remember that when you add or subtract fractions with different denominators, that you do need to have a common denominator. You have to have them equal pieces, and two different ways that we have practiced in class. One was butterfly method, and one was actually just coming up with a common denominator and making equivalent fractions. Now, if you use butterfly method, I do want you at the end to see if you can simplify. Remember, a fraction is in simplest form when the GCF is 1, and GCF is greatest common factor. So it's the biggest number that goes into both. So if the GCF is not 1, that means it can be simplified. So go ahead and get your packet and you can do them with me. Okay, here's the first one. 1/2 minus 1/4. I did it two different ways. The first way in the blue, you'll see I made equivalent fractions. 1/2 goes into fourths, so 4 is the new denominator. The first one I made equivalent fractions. 1/2 equals 2/4. Remember, any equivalent fraction you can make by multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same number. So you have 2/4 minus 1/4 equals 1/4. The other way, if you chose to do butterfly method, you are cross multiplying. So 4 times 1 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2, then you subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. The denominator you multiply together, 2 and 4 to get 8. Now look, 2/8 is not in simplest form. The GCF would be 2. 2 goes into both evenly, so 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, number 2. The first way I made an equivalent fraction with eighths. 1/2 equals 4/8. 4/8 minus 3/8 is 1/8. The other way is butterfly method. You can choose either way. Cross multiply. 8 times 1 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6, and you subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. Denominator would be 16, so 2/16. That is not in simplest form. 2 goes into both, so divide top and bottom by 2, which equals 1/8. Okay, number 3. The first way I made equivalent fractions, they both go into 6. So you have 3/6 minus 2/6 is 1/6. Now this one really was about the same either way. So 3 times 1 is 3 when you cross multiply. 2 times 1 is 2, and you subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1 over 6. Now remember, to get your denominator, you multiply them together. 2 times 3 is 6. Anytime you have a 1 in the numerator, it automatically is in simplest form. Okay, here's number 4. 1/3 minus 1/4. Made equivalent fractions. They both go into 12. So you see what you multiply the denominator by to get to 12. 3 times 4 is 12. If you multiply by 4 there, you have to multiply the numerator by 4. So 1 times 4 is 4. At the bottom, you have 4 times 3 is 12. So you have to multiply the 1 times 3 as well. So 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. 4/12 minus 3/12 is 1/12. This one's very similar to on butterfly method. Cross multiply. 4 times 1 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. Subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. And the denominator is 12. Okay, number 5. I have 5/6 minus 5/12. They both go into 12. So 6 times 2 is 12, 5 times 2 is 10. So 5/6 is equivalent to 10/12. Now, notice what I did. I just drew an arrow on the blue because 5/12, the denominator is already 12. So really, I just carried it over. So 10/12 minus 5/12 is 5/12. Okay, now look at butterfly method. You have 12 times 5 is 60. You're working with bigger numbers now. 6 times 5 is 30. When you subtract, 60 minus 30 is 30. Denominator, 6 times 12 is 72. Now that is not in simplest form. The biggest number that goes into both is 6. So divide top and bottom by 6. 30 divided by 6 is 5. 72 divided by 6 is 12. Okay, here's number 6. They both go into 12 in the blue. So 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. 1/6 is equivalent to 2/12. 9/12 minus 2/12 is 7/12. Butterfly method. You multiply across. 6 times 3 is 18. 4 times 1 is 4. You subtract. 18 minus 4 is 14. Denominator would be 24 because 4 times 6 is 24. Now, they do have a common factor. They both have a factor of 2. So divide numerator and denominator by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Okay, on number 7, they both go into 8 when you just do a common denominator. So 7/8 would still stay the same. 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. 7/8 minus 6/8 is 1/8. Butterfly method. 4 times 7 is 28. 8 times 3 is 24. You subtract. 28 minus 24 is 4. Denominator would be 32. That is not in simplest form. Do you remember that trick that we talked about? The first question to ask, does 4 go into 32? It does. So divide top and bottom by 4, and it equals 1/8. Okay, number 8, you have 1/2 minus 2/5. They both go into 10. So 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10. 2/5 is equivalent to 4/10. Subtract equals 1/10. The other way, you have 5 times 1 is 5. When you cross multiply, 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1/10. Both of those are already in simplest form. Okay, number 9, you have 3/4 minus 3/5. They both go into 20. So 3 times 5 is 15. And 4 times 3 is 12. So 15/20 minus 12/20 equals 3/20. No common factor besides 1. They're in simplest form. The other way, butterfly method, 5 times 3 when you cross multiply is 15. 4 times 3 is 12. You subtract. 15 minus 12 is 3/20. Okay, here's number 10. Common denominator is 15. 2/3 is equivalent to 10/15. 3/5 is equivalent to 9/15, and you subtract. 10/15 minus 9/15 equals 1/15. Butterfly method, cross multiply. 5 times 2 is 10. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. Denominator would be 15 because 3 times 5 is 15. Now, both of these have a common, do not have any common factors besides 1. They're both in simplest form. Remember, if you have a numerator of 1, you're done. You're in simplest form already. Okay, number 11, you have 5/6 minus 3/8. Common denominator is 24. So 5 times 4 is 20/24. 3 times 3 is 9/24. And you subtract. 20/24 minus 9/24 equals 11/24. On butterfly method, 8 times 5 is 40. 6 times 3 is 18. When you subtract, you get 22/48. That is not in simplest form. They have a common factor of 2. So divide top and bottom by 2, and you would get 11/24. Okay, number 12. They both have a common denominator of 24. 7/8 is equivalent to 21/24 because you multiply top and bottom by 3. 2/3 is equivalent to 16/24 because you multiply top and bottom by 8. 21/24 minus 16/24 equals 5/24. And butterfly method, multiply across. 3 times 7 is 21. 8 times 2 is 16, and you subtract. 21 minus 16 is 5/24. They have no common factors besides 1. It is in simplest form. You could show this in different ways for number 10. One thing that I did is I divided my rectangle into thirds, and I shaded in one direction 1/3. And then I did the other way into fourths, and I counted how many pieces would be 1/4, and there would be 3 of them, so 3/12. And so then I crossed out for my 1/3, 3 of the pieces, which equals 1/12. Another way is I could just add it backwards. I could say 1/12 plus 1/4, which is the same as 3/12, equals 4/12, which is the same as 1/3 to check it. Okay, on the back, you have what is the total weight of both packages. When you have total weight, that means you're adding. So you have 3/8 plus 2/3. Need a common denominator of 24. So 9/24 plus 16/24 is 25/24. But hold on, that's an improper fraction. So how many wholes can you take? 24 goes into 25 one whole time with 1 left over. Remember, the leftover piece goes to the numerator. The denominator stays the same. So the total weight is 1 and 1/24. I also showed a butterfly method. It ended up being the exact same 25/24, which still has to change to 1 and 1/24. Okay, I'm going to show this one 2 different ways. This one says how much more do they need to buy? Okay, so I know I'm trying to find that missing piece, so I have to subtract. Now, on the left side, what I did to fill in that missing piece, I actually added up to get to that piece. I know that I would add 1/8 to the 2 7/8. That would give me 3. Then I would need another 2 yards, which would give me 5, and then I would need 1/4. So when I add 1/8 plus 2 plus 1/4, it's going to equal 2 3/8. Now remember, 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8. That's how we got that 3/8 there. Now the other part is standard algorithm. It might look a little complicated. You could have changed it to improper fractions if you wanted to, and then there would be no regrouping. I started with 5 1/4 minus 2 7/8. They both go into eighths, so 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8. Now here's where I had the problem. 2/8 minus 7/8. I cannot do that because 2/8 is smaller than 7/8. So I'm going to the 5. I'm going to borrow from it. Now really what I'm doing here is I'm breaking it apart. I'm going to break apart the yards into 4 yards and 1 whole as a fraction. So there'd be 8/8. That's why I added 8/8 to the 2/8, which equals 10/8. Minus now the 7/8. So 10/8 minus 7/8 is 3/8. 4 minus 2 is 2. So total, still my answer still match. She needs 2 3/8 yards. Okay, how many quarts does she need in all for this one? I'm trying to find the total, which means that I'm going to add. So on this one, you have 3 3/8 plus 3 3/4. I made a common denominator of 8. So the only one I needed to change was 3/4 equals 6/8. When I add my fractions, 3/8 plus 6/8 equals 9/8. But hold on a second. That's an improper fraction. I'm going to have to change that to 1 1/8 because 8 goes into 9 one whole time with 1 left over. So 1 1/8 plus the 6 from 3 whole plus 3 whole. So your total answer is 7 1/8. So Tyrone needs 7 1/8 quarts. It shouldn't say more. It's in all. So hope this helps. Hope that helps. Hope you're doing well. We miss you and love you. Just keep your brains active during this time. Now would be a great time to start a journal. You're making history right now.